Hello. As I guess was just mentioned, I'm Pиеррэ Gratton. I'm the President and CEO of the Mining Association of Canada. It's a great pleasure to be here today, and I look forward in an hour's time to signing an agreement with the Mongolian Mining Association on our Towards Sustainable Mining program, which I'm going to take a few minutes today to describe to you what it's all about. So, Towards Sustainable Mining, or TSM, as we call it, do we have I thought we translated this into, Do we have a Mongolian version? Okay, all right. Okay, I thought we had a version of this translated. So TSM has been around for 20 years. We started it 20 years ago in Canada, and it was the very first mining standard in the world that was focused on mine site level evaluation, verification, and reporting. So it consists in broad terms of these 7 areas. There's an overarching set of guiding principles. There's a series of performance indicators covering a range of environmental and social aspects of mining. It involves facility level reporting, independent verification, public reporting of that results. It's a very transparent system. It's a requirement of membership of our association. To be a member of MAC, you have to implement this program. And it is overseen by a community of interest or stakeholder panel. And next slide. Where do I point? There we go. This is a photo of our panel, which is multi-interest. It involves representatives from Canada's 3 Indigenous peoples. It involves representatives of people who live and work in a mining community. It involves environmental and social non-governmental organizations. We have a representative from the academic community. We have organized labor, and we have someone from the financial sector, and most recently, we added a couple of customers of mined products. And this group meets twice every year with a number of virtual meetings in between, and their purpose is to help us implement TSM, develop and implement the standard. They've played a very active role over the years in helping guide the development of TSM. Most recently in June, we at MAC made a very important decision where for 20 years this body was advisory in nature. It gave us advice. We have a long track record of accepting and implementing their advice, but it was nevertheless advisory. In June, we gave this panel became an equal. They now have equal decision-making power along with our board of directors on any future decisions relating to TSM. Any new member of TSM, like the Mongolian Mining Association or our existing partners in other countries, don't have to make the same decision. It took us 20 years to get to that point. In every other country, it remains an advisory body. And that's one of the, I think the values of TSM. It allows different countries to go at their pace and to adapt the program to their national circumstances. So it consists of 9 different performance areas. 5 in the broadly speaking social category and 4 in the environmental category. So you're looking at Indigenous and community relationships, safe, healthy, and respectful workplaces, crisis management, preventing child and forced labor, and equitable, diverse, and inclusive workplaces. This Equitable, diverse, and inclusive workplaces is the most recent addition to TSM. It was adopted last year after a 2-year development process. Tailings management, biodiversity conservation, water stewardship, and climate change round out the set of performance areas. I would add that there is also a protocol addressing mine closure that was developed by one of our partners, the Mining Association of Finland. And so that exists, and it's available for other countries that may want to also incorporate mine closure into their application of TSM. We don't do that in Canada. We have felt that the regulatory system in Canada governing mine closure is very robust, and we did not feel that that particular protocol had much to add to what already exists in Canada. So we don't do it, but other countries do. Finland, obviously, but also Colombia and Argentina are two other mining associations that are part of the TSM family that are implementing that closure protocol. This just gives you a little bit more detail, and I'm going to walk over here since I can. So here at the light blue, you have those 9 areas that I was just talking about. And underneath, in the dark blue, are each of the performance indicators for TSM. For example, here under Indigenous and Community Relationships, there are 5 performance indicators. The first one talks about and has criteria that looks at how has the mine identified who its stakeholders are? What kind of process does it have to identify who in their vicinity is impacted by mining operations? Then the second indicator looks at how are you engaging with those communities? How do you talk to them? How do you involve them in matters that might interest them? The third is specifically focused on Indigenous people. So in some countries, that particular indicator may not be relevant, but it is in Canada. And it looks, so it's really, it's addressing those with particular rights that other communities may not have. This looks at the benefits and risks that communities face, and it looks at how do communities and the company come to terms on what the opportunities are to benefit from mining, and what are the risks that they face, and how can you work together to mitigate those risks. And lastly, there's a response mechanism. If there are complaints, if there are problems, is there a process for communities to contact the mine and have those issues looked into? And that's your last indicator. So taken together, these 5 make up a very complete approach to community engagement. I won't go through all of these, but it's the same idea. For safety and health, you've got 6 indicators that cover the gamut of what's involved in keeping our workers safe. Same thing with equitable and inclusive workplaces, tailings management, and so on. Now, next. How it works is there is a 5-level rating system, from C all the way up to AAA. And at each level, there are criteria. At C, it's basically, you don't meet any of the criteria. It's the bottom level. But you're on a process to improve. At level B, you're beginning to put in place the different types of requirements for each of those indicators. And A represents good practice, and that is the goal for our members to achieve level A in all of those indicators over time. It's usually not what you do right away, but over time you can progress and achieve that level. And AA and AAA are opportunities to show leadership. So almost all of the indicators on this slide, can I go backwards? Can I? Or no? What do I point to? No. Okay. So almost all of these are on that 5-level scale, but there are 2 exceptions. Prevention of child and forced labor, and where is it? Crisis management. For those 2 areas, it's binary, it's yes or no. It's not on that level scale. I mean, it's pretty easy to understand with preventing forced and child labor. You can't have a scale. You can't say, oh, well, at level A, we only have 5 children. At level B, we have 7 children. It doesn't work that way. You have to make sure there is none. So it's yes or no. And same with crisis management planning. It's the view, you can't be sort of ready or sort of prepared for a crisis. You're either ready, you're ready or you're not ready. So it's much more, it's binary. It's much tougher. You have to meet all of the criteria in order to answer yes to those indicators. And I'll go, try again. There we go. So I'll keep one more. This is just an illustration of what it looks like, what each of the protocols look like. So this is community of interest identification. So you see C, level B, there's criteria, level A, there's more. So to achieve a level A, you have to meet everything that came before. Everything in B, everything in A, in order to get an A. There are no partial scores. You know, you don't, if you have everything in A but 1, you're a B, you're not an A. And same thing for double A, you have to meet everything. So that's how the system works. I'm supposed to be pointing at it. There we go. So how does it work? So every year, every mine does a self-assessment. They evaluate themselves. So they will go through all of those indicators that I showed you, and they will give themselves a score, a B, an A, a double A, whatever that it may be for each of those indicators. Every 3 years, an auditor comes to evaluate, an independent auditor comes to evaluate and determine if their self-assessments are accurate. They will see, okay, you said you had an A in this area. Is it true? What evidence do you have to show that it's true? And the auditor may interview people, interview workers, interview members of the community in order to confirm that that score is accurate. So in that 3rd year, that verifier comes in, and then when it's completed, results are published. The results are published every year, actually. Self-assessment results are published, and then verified results are published every 3 years. And you can see how, over time, a mine is improving. In a year when there's a verification, the CEO of the company or the most senior representative in country, if it's a foreign company, provides a letter that confirms, it's an attestation, that the verification took place according to the rules. And also our panel gets involved. Our panel will choose 2 companies each year to come meet with the panel and engage in a dialogue on their performance, on the issues that they've been dealing with, their challenges, their opportunities, and so on. A few other things about TSM that have evolved over the years is we require now that communities are given advance notice when a verification is happening of at least 1 month or 30 days. Because at the higher levels of performance in particular, verifiers, in order to confirm a score, will need to talk to members of the community. So this gives the community an opportunity to raise their hand and say, I want to speak to the verifier, I have information to share. Verification reports are now published. It used to be for many years, all we reported were the scores. Now the verifier produces a report, and that report is also published on our website. So a lot of these changes have emerged because the customers, particularly in the auto sector, has started to demand these kinds of changes. So auto sector that may be wanting to buy copper from Mongolia, or they may be wanting to buy nickel from Canada or from Indonesia, want to know that the product was mined responsibly. So they are the ones that have been asking for these extra types of assurances that the program is working as it should. So it's become much more rigorous. When we first started, it was really just, the motivation was just to help the industry get better at what it was doing. Today, the environment has changed, and it's not just about us working amongst ourselves, but there is an outside interest in how we're doing. And I think in the world in which we live today, with a heightened demand for critical minerals and the fact that we need to mine much more today in order to address climate change, in order to address some of the geopolitical challenges that the world is facing, we need to mine responsibly. So the importance and value of standards in the last 20 years in mining has increased exponentially. This is an example of how it looks. How do we report? It's very simple, but here you have one of our member companies. This is Vale. These are the results for tailings for them. So tailings has 5 indicators. These are their operations in Manitoba, and as you can see, they've achieved a level A in all of the 5. But here in Newfoundland, they actually got a B in one area. But otherwise, it's pretty consistent across the board. So that's what our reporting looks like. And this also tells a story. It tells an important story of continuous improvement. So this is also tailings, but this is all of our members in Canada. And what you can see here is this was tailings management. I have 2 versions here, so I'll explain that. So this shows when we first started TSM in 2006, the first year we published verified results, less than 50% of our members achieved level A. And most of them were A. This was double A, this is triple A. So less than 50% achieved level A or better. But then in 2018, look how much it had changed. We were at 91% at level A or better, and most of them were at triple A. That's real progress. That's how TSM is really, really effective, because a company that's at B can see what criteria they need to make to get to A, and they can work on that. And the next year, maybe they'll get there. And then over time, and then they might try for double A, and then they might try for triple A. So there's a real... But also, and this is where this comes in, standards and expectations aren't static, they change over time. So what you see here are the results for 2021 and 2022. Because what we did, particularly in response to the tailings failures in Brazil at Samarco and Brumadinho, we re-examined our tailings requirements and we strengthened them. They became tougher. We added new features because tailings practices had changed. And so what happened is we went from, if you compare the results here, they dropped. We went from 90-something% to 81. But then we started to climb again, and we're back at 94%. Though, as you'll see, there's fewer in AAA than there used to be, because it's much more demanding. These sorts of changes have been made to all of the protocols over time. So there is that opportunity to sort of stay in tune with changing expectations, changing technologies, changing practices. And where am I supposed to point? Is that it? Oh, I think that's the end. That's the end. So that's how TSM works. I'm really excited that the Mongolian Mining Association is joining the TSM family. You're number 13. I know that means it's lucky. Lucky 13. I say that because I was born on the 13th of October. Very soon, you can all wish me happy birthday. So it's really a momentous occasion. I should mention, too, that actually what got us here was the leadership of the Mongolian Mining Corporation, which took the initiative to actually apply TSM on its own. They worked with us over the last few years, and this year they published their results, their verified results for the very first time. So they helped show the rest of the Mongolian mining sector that it can be done. And so really I congratulate them for their leadership, and I look forward to working with all of you in the coming years. My colleague is joining me tomorrow, and we're going to be doing 2 days of training next week. And we're going to be working together, and I really look forward to that. Thank you very much.
Баярлалаа.